Okay. So welcome to Wyckoff Sundays, episode seven. Episode seven, man. So we have been running this up now for almost 2 months. All right. Truthfully, like when it comes to higher time frame analysis, we have actually killed it. Like all 6 weeks, to be honest. Like it's really like we had a crystal ball. I definitely recommend you guys going back and just looking through and thinking about like, hey, what if I followed this overview, every single week for the last 7 weeks? And I'm telling you, it's been really clean. It's been very, very clean, throughout it all. So definitely recommended, still good watch backs for those of you guys that might be struggling with higher time frame analysis. I think it's great. All right. So without further ado, let's go ahead and review last week and talk about what we were looking at, for the week, right? So obviously last week we spoke about dollar first, right? So we had, the market pretty much consolidating for the most part. We had been looking for buys on this, right? And then the war came out with Iran over the weekend, right? And so we said most likely this was already positioned to really go ahead and make a rally to the upside when it comes to dollar, which is pretty much what we've been talking about ever since like somewhere over here. We called out buys down here, right? We called out buys in here as well the week before. So definitely, made sense to just see that continue, right? We had relatively equal highs sitting at the top, lots of liquidity, right? A lot of wicks to the upside, right? And more so having strong candles to the downside like that, right? That's really what we want to see, when we want to go in that direction. Obviously, as we can see, now with dollar, we were spot on. With the move of the week was definitely buys, right? So we had the market gap up right after Wyckoff Sundays, tiny little pullback back into the imbalance. And then boom, we ended up booming it all the way through to new highs here on dollar, right? So again, we've been playing around with the idea of this being a potential higher time frame accumulation. We'll see if that's the case, right? But yeah, that was kind of the review from last week. So good move right off the bat, right off the rip from dollar. So that was that. All right. And then we spoke about the currencies as well, that we'd be looking for that. So USD currency analysis. So we spoke about we'd most likely be seeing Euro USD go down to these levels, and then maybe, from there we'll see what we see this week. And yeah, obviously that is what ended up happening, right? We got Euro USD now all the way down here, towards this, right? We've been calling out the potential for this to have been a manipulation up, and it's looking like we're seeing that type of PA, right? So I do wonder if what we've been saying has, will be playing out over the longer term, right? That was EU, and then we spoke about obviously GU, right? Just looking for the same things. We were hoping to get a retracement up into there, but obviously GU just opened and continued to dump through. And U, same idea. And then U Chef, this was the biggest one that we had really seen liquidity sitting above here. We had tried to buy it last week, right? Ended up closing that at about like a 0.5% loss. And then, after that, good thing we did because otherwise it would have been a full loss there. But then we just created all this liquidity to the upside, right? So we were really looking for price to go ahead and target all that liquidity to the upside on USD CHF. And, obviously if we go there, exactly what happened, right? So since we saw what happened with dollar, right here, right? And then, going ahead and going for that liquidity there to the upside for USD Chef. And yeah, pretty much across the board there for that, right? Then we spoke about gold, right? We said that obviously, gold was looking pretty decent. We had reaccumulations that happened here. But we did say, we want to be careful. We spoke about like the exact things that we said was, like we most likely will see a gap to the upside, right? Which we did obviously see to start off the week. But we said to be careful because when everybody is all trying to look at one direction, that's when us as, smart money concepts, Wyckoff traders want to start to become skeptical, right? And, obviously we ended up completely distributing on gold, ended up absolutely dumping off to the downside, right? So hopefully those of you guys that have been holding swing buys with us or, anything like that did take some partials there. And if not, this is something to learn from because I mean, like, really having, price coming back into the previous highs where we saw the sell off from a couple of weeks ago and stuff, and not taking partials in those areas, right? We really should have been, right? Which is fine, it happens, right? We did see price get into, a really nice zone over here to the left, right? Really nice institutional candles and stuff that happened, right? So this was the pullback there on dollar, sorry, on gold, I mean. After we had like this huge drop down, price came back, filled this imbalance, and then continued down. And that's exactly where price came into when we distributed after the Iran war happened, right? So again, price gapped up, right? came back down. Everyone was like, "Oh, guys, on Monday we're gonna buy, we're gonna buy." All right, perfect. Price rallies and then it just drops thousands of pips. So pretty typical, to be honest. Pretty typical stuff. Not surprised at all that that happened. But we'll see what we can see going into the new week because I do still think we have opportunities. All right. So that did happen with gold and silver, right? We definitely said be careful. Didn't exactly call out sells above the highs, but I definitely had a feeling, right? Then we had indices. All right. So we spoke about indices. A couple different things that we spoke about here was
Okay, yeah.
S&P,
So, I mean, firstly,
with the daily institutional candle. If we look over here real quick, right? So right here, we spoke about this up candle right here that had the market going ahead and clearing highs prior to market close. And then obviously we had the Iran war coming out, right? So, when the Iran war came out, right? Obviously it was like we were already kind of primed to just continue to head towards that direction, for it, right? So we had a really nice up candle there, manipulating highs on the daily, and then we see the market go ahead and extend down. We also spoke about US 30, right? So we were saying most likely we could see S&P going for a push to the downside. And then where's US 30? Here we go. We have US 30 here. And so US 30 really with all this liquidity to the downside, and again, just like showing like even when we got here, we didn't actually show signs of strength, right? We really did show that the market just took it all back, right? So we were looking for buys in that area at first. We did get reactions from there. But then after that, we said, yeah, most likely, US 30 is going to be going down towards this trend line liquidity that's sitting there, right? And then obviously potentially go towards like even these extreme areas there. So we'll see if we can get an opportunity this week, potentially to, continue to bring it back up, right? But that was pretty much what we were saying, right? I think we have a drawing of it. Yeah, so like US 30, something like that. That was really our call out. And let's look at it now, man, because holy moly, right? That's obviously exactly what ended up happening, right? So, we had the market from there completely crash, right? Drop all the way down towards those lows there. S&P 500, daily institutional candle, right? This was probably the best one because S&P 500 actually did retest that daily institutional candle. So these were golden opportunities to really go ahead and look for those drops. Personally, I do. Oh, sorry, we're not talking about the future yet, but we'll talk a bit about what we can probably see happening this week in a bit, right? And then Nasdaq as well. I think we talked about two. We spoke about that these highs over here, we pretty much had signs of potential redistribution after having taken the highs. Like obviously we took the buys and this was like our target. So when price reached that target and we kind of, distributed, right, kind of swept them, right, mitigated and then continued to come down, we looked at that as a potential sign that we could be seeing also pushes to the downside on Nasdaq. Right. I don't know exactly where, but yeah, even here, daily time frame with Nasdaq, we had an institutional candle there too. So that's what we spoke about there. And then obviously, if we look at Nasdaq here now, right? I mean, Nasdaq held up pretty well, right? But like, we had price come down and then really just come up and get back into this manipulation that we spoke about, right? So paying attention to that, right? And then paying attention to the gap here. I mean, made a lot of sense to actually look for Nasdaq to go lower later on in the week, right? This was like in Wednesday when we actually traded back into there, right? And it was tricky because again, a lot of people know like, all right, news, when it comes to war is very bearish for indices, right? So, a lot of people are thinking, oh, come Monday, I'm shorting it, right? Everyone just wants it to happen right then and there. But obviously, what happened on Monday? Buy setup, right? We just dump after that, right? What happened on Tuesday for New York, right? I'm talking about New York session. New York session was a buy setup. Tuesday, New York session, buy setup, right? We didn't actually get a sell setup on New York session until Thursday, it looks like, right? And then Friday as well, oh, actually, no, that wasn't New York, but yeah, Thursday we was really the only time we got that New York session set up. So, patience is key. Waiting for the right zones is key, right? And again, I think this is where we had the redistribution. This is where we had the daily institutional candle to the upside. And now look at us now, right? So looking kind of interesting there with Nasdaq for sure, for sure. So that was Nasdaq there. And finally, we had crypto, which was definitely the best call out of the week last week when it came to crypto, right? So we spoke about how we were pretty much going the same direction as war for everything, except for with crypto, where obviously technically with war, this is a risk on asset. So you would think that crypto would be, bearish, right? But crypto obviously had a beautiful buy setup to the upside. We spoke about the manipulation that happened the moment that the Iran war came out, right? We managed to snag buys in there after that. And then we had the market pretty much, we had this trap candle sitting right here, a little reaccumulation going on there. And so what we said was that we would most likely see the market go ahead and trade down a little bit lower down into these levels before we went ahead and targeted higher highs on crypto, right? So I want to see exactly where we no, we spoke about it, but yeah, this is what we showed, right? We showed all the trend line liquidity that was sitting on top, right? And that most likely that would end up being a target for us to continue to long, right? We were seeing bullish order flow happening in these lows, so it made a lot of sense to look for that. And as you can see, this right here is where we marked up that zone right there. So we marked up the zone at around, I believe it's like 65, right? 65 flat or something. And we were saying that most likely we would get the 4 hour candle to reach that level and then see the next 4 hour candle, actually give us the impulse, to the upside, right? And now let's go and see what crypto did, right? Right here, y'all, right here. So this is the exact candle we spoke about, right? Uh, Wait, where is it? Right here. Yeah. So this is that exact trap candle right there, right? Trap candle right there. Okay. We see price that same day, right after Wyckoff Sunday, trade back down into those levels, get a good reaction. And then New York session on Monday, I managed to snag an absolutely disgusting snipe, on this trade. I did try to take a position here, right? Ended up getting stopped out at break even. And then after that, the next day when I woke up, I ended up going for this position on that, right? So here took partials, but obviously our target was long term, looking to go towards 72, 74. And that's exactly what we tapped. We tapped 74 right there. So, the risk to reward potential on that was huge, right? Massive, massive move and just multiple opportunities throughout the week as well to take advantage of the same move, right? I mean, like there was an opportunity, there was an opportunity. This is also an opportunity. This is an opportunity here as well. And, before we end up reaching up towards those levels, right? So in terms of what we can see going on this week, I mean, only time will tell, right? And we're about to, speak about that in a second now, right? But that was pretty much the review of last week, y'all, right? So personally, I think we absolutely killed it with the higher time frame overview. Trade of the week for me was BTC. Right, really when it came down to it, really, really good for that as well. Obviously, dollar, like the move you had to have positioned yourself in before, Wyckoff Sundays episode 6. So like we've been talking about this since like episode 3, was for dollar buys. So, to take advantage of that move from war, you would have had to already been in the market. But, for the rest of them, as well, really same thing, to be honest. You would have already have been in the market, like for example, GU and stuff like that. And then gold, right? Managed to catch sells and buys, and silver, I managed to catch buys as well last week. And then, indices, I didn't actually play indices at all, unfortunately. But that was also a really good analysis, from that, right? And then crypto here too, right? We did manage to play, right? So yeah, that's pretty much the review of last week, guys. All right. So hopefully you guys managed to have a good week last week. It was NFP week and everything. But yeah, again, really, really good analysis when it came down to it, right? So yeah, okay, cool. So I see you got some stuff here. Interesting. We'll definitely talk about that in a second there, Matt. And we'll go through what we could potentially see there. But yeah, first I'll start off with, analysis with dollar. Let's go to a cleaner chart here. Give me one sec. All right, so again, we're going to stick to the higher time frame with this. All right. So firstly, I mean, to check back in, obviously, ever since we had this institutional candle down here to the downside, right? We have been speaking about the potential for, all right, well, what if this actually ends up being a spring for a higher time frame Wyckoff accumulation, right? That's what was kind of having us like potentially looking for that flip on dollar to go ahead and see the next impulse higher. And so far, I mean, like, we were kind of just playing with the idea, but right now, like that theory is starting to look a lot more, feasible, really, to be honest. It's starting to look like it makes a lot more sense to me, that might be what the actual incentive is, right? So I think it's really possible, again, that, when it comes to this daily time frame, like, again, the main reason we saw that was because we were ranging for like a year, right? Right now, it's been almost a year that we've been in this range for dollar, right? So obviously, even though we've kind of been, creating highs and coming lower, creating highs and coming lower, it's not necessarily mean that is bearish, right? If we end up having like real good accumulation ranges and stuff like that, which it did look like we did, I think it looks good, right? To maybe even long, right? Personally, I did want to see dollar get a little bit lower. I don't know, it doesn't even show me there well. But yeah, I did want to see dollar get a little bit lower. If we can look on the other chart, we could see. the zone I was kind of targeting was right over here, right? So I was kind of thinking, all right, maybe dollar could reach there, but we did reach a decent area over here already. If we look to the left, right, we can see the market go ahead and have this buildup of liquidity here, right? Sweep through that, okay? And then start to create the order flow to the upside. We left a gap here, and that's exactly where price tapped into, to go ahead and do that daily sweep, right? So that was kind of the thought process, and so far it's looking pretty good. And really right now, I mean, for me personally, I'd rather be on the buy side for this, right? But granted, we still haven't really seen dollar completely break through yet. I mean, it's totally possible that this could just be, a short term, again, like an accumulation that then turns into a distribution. So basically a redistribution, right? So like maybe like now, right? Like now that we've had this whole accumulation happen over here, right? Could it be that now market is looking to redistribute, right, above highs and start to, again, set up to actually give us another impulse down? Definitely still possible, right? So I definitely still see both sides of the market potentially in play. But really the main thing for me now is just seeing the right price action above previous highs though, right? So we end up seeing the market go ahead and, from here, get a huge drive up, like from these lows, right? We see the market also go ahead and also get above this high right here, right? From the bigger time frame perspective, right? Now, the only thing that I don't really like about this level is simply the fact that, there's no real big candle here, right? Maybe on the daily you can look at that as like a manipulation candle, maybe, right? But we don't really get a nice, 4 hour close above the high, right? And I believe on most time frames, like we don't get a candle that actually closes above the high. So that's really what I like to see, right? Obviously similar to like what we had on the daily here, right? With that down candle that happened there that we then obviously completely recovered from, right? I mean, that's the kind of price action I'd want to see if we were going to be looking on the way down, personally, right? So I don't really know too well about this high, right? The main thing that I do think though is that we did end up getting a good nice candle later on, right? So we can see here that right before NFP was released, right? We had this 4 hour institutional up candle going ahead and targeting this previous high right here. And then we had NFP release and end up creating, that 4 hour candle to really go ahead and come to the downside, right? So is it possible that this could be like a second point of manipulation, even though we didn't have, the market go ahead and, really trade, and get like a nice institutional candle above here? Could it be that this sweep, we do see the order flow continue, right? Potentially, right? That is potentially an idea. For me personally, though, I will not be entertaining that idea. All right. So for me personally, I probably won't be looking for trades in that zone because I would really just like to see the high not be a wick and actually be a proper candle and also just really have proper, like timing with it as well. Right. And what I can kind of see is like, again, the market potentially using this point here as a point of liquidity. Like maybe this can be basically for me the potential of the beginning of a distribution, right? So as we can see, like, the market getting up into new highs, right? Creating like signs of manipulation there and everything, closing off with a big wick and also having a very big point in volume as well, right? For this pair too, right? So let's go ahead and actually look at other volume feeds and just see how that looks too, right? Yeah, so pretty big spike in volume. This is the biggest spike in volume that we've had since when? Right? That's even bigger than the spike in volume we had there. Yeah, so the last time we had a spike in volume this big was in August of 2025, right? So, really long time since we've had such a big volume spike, at least there. Let's look at these other ones. Right, pretty big volume spike there too. This is higher, but that's NFP, so that makes sense. But yeah, like there, very big volume spike as well, right? So pretty much across the board, even across different volume feeds, we are getting pretty big spikes there, right? So seeing big spikes and then seeing big wicks to me shows me that we're most likely only in phase A of the distribution, right? So if we really were to want to see a distribution happening in this zone, right, we probably will end up seeing the market go ahead and run highs on that very high volume high there, right? So again, this is something that we've used before as well in our analysis. Like for example, with gold, right? That's how we really caught the bottom of gold because we noticed that again, this wick right here, right, created a huge volume spike, right? And again, really closing far off of that low. So again, creating a wick, right? So while a lot of people were probably buying this, trying to see this come higher, we were thinking we'd most likely come lower and accumulate below those lows before then starting to boom. And I believe we called this out on I don't remember which episode. I want to say episode 4. I think Wyckoff Sundays episode 4, we called that out for gold. So kind of similar idea of what we'd want to see for dollar would be, all right, can it be that this high volume spike here is really just the beginning, right? And now we're just kind of starting to consolidate, starting to range, right? Starting to stay in one place. And then maybe later on, we can end up getting the market trade higher into this area here, right? Obviously, this is our last area that we really saw manipulation that's still been respected, right? So, like here we have an arrow going across, right? And where do we see like that we start buying to target that? Right around here, booming it up to there, right? And taking out that high. So that's where I would personally, this is the zone that I'm personally interested in from a higher time frame perspective, right? You know, when it comes to us actually seeing the sell off on dollar, if that's what we want to see, right? Like I said, we've been bullish for a while now, right? Obviously, we always like to play devil's advocate. And every single time that we've played devil's advocate for the buys on dollar, you know, we've been talking about this high as a potential point of interest. We've already broken that. Right. So I think now, like, I think that's just the beginning, right? I think we took out a lot of people there. And I think soon we're going to get, you know, potentially more sweeps or whatever it might be before we then end up coming to the downside, right? And that's obviously in a case where we're wrong about this being a bigger time frame accumulation, right? With the multiple drives to the downside, right? That's in the case that we're wrong about that, right? And if we do see signs of distribution here, well, maybe it's worth a shot to go ahead and actually take a sell in those zones, even if we, even though like obviously our idea is, all right, can this potentially be a higher time frame accumulation, right? So tough to say, but we shall see. We shall see how that ends up going there with dollar. All right. So let's go ahead and now go into probably dollar currency now, right? So again, like nice 4 hour candle. I will mention it, right? Nice 4 hour candle to happen right before news on NFP. Definitely can be a reason for us to like trust it. Sorry, to trust this wick. But I think that there's other evidence that for me makes me not want to trust this and makes me want to go ahead and actually wait for the sweep to come higher and actually let the distribution continue. But yeah, we are definitely seeing pickups in volume now, as we're starting to, you know, get into these zones here. So if we can start to get higher on lower volume, right? So we start to get lower volume as we're taking the highs, then again, it's going to look a little bit more like a better setup for me personally, at least from a higher time frame perspective. So we'll see how this goes down. All right, guys, we'll see how this goes down. So now let's go ahead and go into dollar pairs. So we're going to start off with Euro USD, right? And so, you know, obviously we were talking about these potential zones for buys there, right? Similar to dollar for the sell zone in that distribution. Didn't end up getting there, right? Now, again, the question still is like, all right, is this potentially a higher time frame distribution, right? This obviously this is the inverse idea of dollar, right? So like, again, we spoke about this a while as well, right? Like, you know, seeing that daily candle on dollar is the same as this daily candle here on Euro USD, right? Then we get price to retest and start to trade down, right? We saw institutional candles really printing throughout, these levels here, you know, on dollar, right? We did speak about that daily institutional candle as well. I did want to see some of these internal highs get swept. We never got that. That's fine. But yeah, so anyways, so we had again a really nice rally up and now we've come all the way back down, right? And again, like if we look at the low here, right? It does look like we got a really high volume low there as well, right? So I wonder, I mean, can we see another sweep there? Potentially, right? Potentially. You know, if we did get something in here, I mean, I'll probably still pay attention to this area here just in case. Again, like if you were to trust that, that 4 hour candle there on dollar, then this would be how you could follow up on that 4 hour candle would be for Euro USD to go ahead and mitigate where we went ahead and swept this low here, right? So I would say that's possibility number one. I won't deny that it's a possibility, right? But, you know, I just think that if we, you know, if we're going to buy, I mean, I think we do get lower, right? One thing that's good about the buy setup, though, is that we are starting to get liquidity building up to the upside here on Euro USD, right? Getting trendline liquidity to the upside. So that is something to target. So hopefully if we can hold those highs and then maybe come down here and accumulate again, we're just going to have to use the lower time frame to confirm. So this would be kind of like a potential type 1 setup because we have a previous zone, right? Price comes back into that zone, manipulates again. So if we come back in here, right? and we show smaller time frame accumulation or whatever it might be, then we can end up starting to follow up and look for buys on the way up as we go ahead and attack this liquidity. But if not, then, again, I'll probably end up staying away and looking to see the big wick get taken and then see us do that on lower volume. All right. So personally, that's what I want. Right. That's what I want. But hopefully we do still end up, again, if we are looking for buys, I personally don't think we should be removing this low here on your USD, right? So that would kind of invalidate the whole setup for me. I feel like if we are going to reaccumulate, we're going to have to reaccumulate in this low that went ahead and created the high, right? So that's kind of what I'm thinking. All right, but again, only time will tell here, right? We got to let the market cook and kind of get into our zones and, show us that we want to really do a higher time frame reversal, right? Because that's what it would be right now, right? Is it would be a higher time frame reversal. Higher time frame wise, we've had that sell off look really nice, right? Check mark, right? You know what I'm saying? So like it would be a higher time frame reversal that we'd be looking for here. So personally, I would just love to see that wick get swept, like even there on the daily, right? Like it's a pretty big wick. So that's what I would like to see. All right. So hopefully that's what we get. All right. So pretty much the same thing across the board would be what we would want, right? GU, I tried to go for buys last week. Unfortunately, ended up just barely getting stopped out because I'm a goof. Because again, like we did think that price was going to reach here, but I ended up just trying to see if these lows here could hold, and then ended up getting stopped out before price, obviously did go towards the liquidity here, right? So I actually think GU looks a lot stronger than EU. And GU could be something that could actually hold the low from last week, instead of like, actually sweeping it, right? So I'll probably favor EU to sweep and I'd probably favor GU to respect. And then from there, I mean, like if this is actually the case, like, yeah, like we could even end up, rocketing to new highs. Again, if the bigger time frame, distribution idea doesn't play out. And I think it's worth to like, now that we're in these extreme areas to start to see like, all right, well, can we start to now take the opposite side? Because we haven't really been in any extreme areas in any of these cases to like take sells. So now we're really getting in that extreme area to take sells potentially $4. So again, like that's why I'm kind of entertaining it a lot more than I have on other Wyckoff Sundays, right? In terms of like continuing to sell, like and sorry, continuing to like yeah, sell on like dollar pairs, right? I mean, I don't really see too much, right? Unless we redistribute like something like that over here. I mean, there's just no sign of it right now as I'm speaking on Sunday, right? So we'll see. When price gets up and above here, I probably wouldn't want to look to sell until price got up and above. But yeah, I don't really like any of these zones to sell from. Like I don't like these areas here, right? Next best areas here, and then even then we have like we said, we have liquidity above, right? Like it's just I don't really see sell setups, right? So for me, probably only going to be looking for new entries for buys and then, just leaving the sells as they were for that. All right. Let's go to NU. Okay, so going to NZD USD. Yeah, same kind of vibes. This was pretty much what we said. The dollar could probably that NU could probably reach towards these lows. We said that last week. That's what we have. And now we're kind of accumulating here too. So yeah, guys, I don't mind this at all. Yeah. Because we do have a high volume spike, but we do get back into it. We manipulate, and then we have another high volume spike. But I don't want to trust this spike there because it could also just be that it spiked because of NFP. So I'm not going to let it change my narrative necessarily, right? I'm still going to want to see these things sweep, man. Just one more time. That would really be what I would like to see if I were to go and take some risk on dollar. All right, USD CAD dumped, right? Absolutely dumped. So pretty nice for anybody who is Canadian, right? This looks pretty bearish. I can't even lie to you. USD CAD looks pretty bearish. We pretty much just barely swept that high, right? Like we do have buy zones here, right? Maybe if it happens in the next daily candle and we just boom it, maybe. But like it is not looking strong. This is not something that I would like to buy, right? Like we're seeing highs get manipulated, come down, highs get manipulated, come down, right? Highs get manipulated, come down, and now again, highs getting manipulated and coming down. So that's really all we've seen over and over and over and over again. So really not looking to go against that at all, right? USD Chef, same idea, right? We took those highs, we had the target, and then now it's like, can we maybe, continue that move down? Potentially, right? Potentially, right? We are sweeping this liquidity here. We'll see, we'll see. I like UJ to continue bullish personally. I know we're in this previous distribution that we spoke about, but this looks bullish to me, right? Like the way that we did it, super aggressive sell off, and just buying those right back up, buying those right back up. So for me, I'm not interested in this zone here for sells. with UJ, or I just wouldn't use UJ for the sells if I was going to sell dollar, right? Okay, that's pretty much that for dollar currencies. All right. Let's go ahead and tap into now gold and silver. All right. So gold and silver look interesting. All right. Currently, silver is the only trade that I'm currently in. I am in silver longs at the moment. All right. So I have longs on silver from right here. Right. Let's go ahead and actually log into our account so we can show you guys right here. Right. So I'm in longs on silver right here. We had the market really trade away. I got nice partials in at these highs. I was trying to re-enter on this as well, like in this low, right? Didn't really try in that low, but I was looking in this low. Unfortunately, got taken out at break even. And then we saw the market go ahead and rally now, right? So the way I'm seeing silver now, I mean, it actually looks pretty bullish, right? We had the market go ahead and like obviously sell off after the whole war thing, but we went ahead and went down, and now we've already taken the lows that created that impulse up, right? So, there's obviously two ways to look at this, right? Is this a break in structure or is it a run on liquidity? That's the question we always want to be asking ourselves, right? Is this a break in structure or is it a run on liquidity? And I think in this case, it looks a lot more like a run on liquidity based off of the price action, right? So seeing how aggressively we got down below, below those lows, and then really just buying right back up. And again, just showing like order flow as it's doing so, right? I mean, that's how we managed to get in on this trade right over here was because of the order flow, right? So we had the market trade down, come back up, and then trade back into that zone, right? We saw it manipulate again, and then we bought it, right? So this was actually a type 1 entry model. And so we had the market trade up, right? Hit about a 3% gain. And then we tap back in and we have not broken that low, right? And we've just been holding it with order flow. And now we have liquidity sitting up here to the upside when it comes to this. So it's like most likely to me, I mean, I think we hold this low and we boom it, right? That's what I think. I think we can potentially even reach back up to new highs and let this just be like a quick redistribution to then go ahead and continue to the upside. So personally, I'm still on the bullish side for gold and for silver, right? Obviously, we'll see what happens when we take out the recent highs that we have from last week. I think these are a given that we'll see these get taken. I think we'll definitely see prices above 86.8, right? From there, I don't know, right? We got to really go ahead and look at what happens when we tap into there, look at what happens when we tap into there. But I do like when it comes to this doesn't scream weakness to me, even because it's so fast, right? It's so aggressive. Okay. And what's fast don't last, you know? And we typically do end up seeing, things like that get bought back up, right? Like again, very similar to this kind of example, right? Really fast pushes down, really fast pushes down. That's why for me, I'm still thinking like, yeah, it's a scary push down, all that good stuff. But truthfully, it could definitely still recover. So I'm still looking for more buys for silver. And then gold, same idea, right? Like even when it came to this recent crash down towards this low, right? I was entertaining sells before, right? But here, massive sell-off, so aggressive, right? Reaching down towards all these lows, all these lows, all these lows, all in the same move. All of those got swept out, right? Seeing price come back, and now NFP, obviously happened there, right? And we had price really react aggressively as well, right? So really clean stuff, I think. Like I think it still looks good to just continue. And again, I do think for gold we'll see minimum above 5.200, right? Minimum above 5.200 this week. After that, I don't know. Personally, like I said, I'm still favoring going to see price even just eat back all that move down, right? But again, we'll see what happens in those levels, right? But I highly doubt that I'll be shorting silver. I mean, silver or gold, regardless, right? So that's what I'm saying. We'll just go ahead and see that continue to buy because we haven't broken order flow, right? And I think in this case, this is looking more like a run on liquidity than it is a break in structure, in my opinion. All right, guys. So from there, all right, let's go ahead and go into the next one, which is going to be indices. All right. So indices are in a really interesting place right now, right? I think that, going ahead and seeing like obviously all this liquidity getting taken now was great, right? That is a really good look, for us to like, all right, can we buy back type of thing, right? Or are we going to see some insane drops, right? I mean, this drop was already pretty big. Um, but like obviously this is our next point of order flow here, right? So this is the low that really brought us up towards these highs. These to me are just like intermediary lows that had been holding up. but now we're actually seeing those get swept through. So personally, I favor buys again on indices, right? I do think that this push to the downside here looks pretty good. We do have imbalance sitting below. Price is not quite filled it just yet. So I don't think we're going to end up seeing this low here be the bottom, although it is possible, but I don't think so. Right? Definitely a very high point of volume in this low. So I'd really like to see one more just spring down, and really just get back into. I mean, here's our extreme sell-off right here that created the bottom, right? And that lines up with the 50% fill of the imbalance, right? So personally, I still think that, coming lower makes sense to start off, but I'm wondering if in here, can we actually get to see signs of accumulation to happen, right? It's a pretty good higher time frame zone, right? Multiple time frames really show candles there, right? We have a nice daily candle there at the bottom as well, right? 4 hour again, like we saw that huge push down there on the 4 hour, right? That was manipulation too. So I think that can maybe be a zone that we buy from. Maybe we completely recover, maybe not. But again, we're just gonna need to see the signs, right? So this is like Wyckoff Sundays, right? Higher time frame analysis. So we're kind of just marking up the zone, right? But we have to see the right price action, the right entry models happen in that zone in order for us to really take advantage of the move. But that's personally what I'm looking for is for price to trade back into there, accumulate again, right? And then break out, right? And then start to trend to the upside, maybe even getting back towards the highs of last week, or maybe that's the week before, actually. Yeah, that's the high of the week before. So only time will tell, right? But I do think that that can definitely be the case. And if we do break through these levels here, I mean, y'all, that is not looking good at all. That means we are breaking order flow and potentially getting back into the next higher time frame zone, which is all the way the frick down here, right? So let's hope that doesn't happen, right? Let's hope that doesn't happen. I mean, or do, right? I mean, whatever. But I would rather see something like that happen a lot more simple, right? But yeah, something like this would be pretty tough. This is like the tariff lows though, so. I mean, hey, the tariffs weren't that long ago. We could see price retest that pretty easily. But until we see price breakthrough here, right, we haven't actually broken through higher time frame order flow. So I'm going to be looking for that this week, right, for US 30, right? And when it comes to all of them, like I think US 30 has the best potential setup for it, right? Let's go ahead and tap into S&P. All right. So S&P still not really getting below the lows. I mean, we kind of ranged a lot more, right? Potentially the relative same zone for BTC on S&P, sorry, for US 30 on S&P would be this zone down in here, right? So again, if this zone breaks, then yeah, maybe tariff lows. And tariff lows are far, bro. So that would be quite a scary, scary time. But let's see. Let's see if this zone here can hold up. Only time will tell. And then for Nasdaq, Nasdaq is holding up a lot better than all of these zones, to be honest, right? So maybe Nasdaq is one that actually holds this low over here, right? But it's, these intermediary lows here, I mean, from what I see right now with the price action on Nasdaq, it looks very bearish, right? We can see on the daily, like daily institutional candle there we pointed out last week, and now we have a daily institutional candle here getting back into there, right? When we look at the bottom, there's only wicks, right? Huge wicks, huge wicks, huge wicks. So we have candles that are more so showing us that the sell side is more likely, and the bottom we have no candles. We're showing huge wicks. That's going to be liquidity, right? So for me, I do think the first move will likely be bearish, right? Hopefully we can hold this low, right? We'll definitely take all these wicks, but hopefully we can hold that low. And if not, then shit. Again, tariff lows, right? So that's scary, right? But definitely possible to see that happen. So just keep that in mind, right? For you guys, right? I might have to tell my parents that now that I'm thinking about it. Um, so yeah, we shall see. We shall see how this goes. Might get them to take some partials. So that's the ideas with indices. All right. Not exactly looking good for buys like currently, but maybe later on in the week we can sweep again and we can end up getting the next impulse higher, right? Now BTC. All right. So BTC, we obviously completed our targets that we've been talking about for a while. Really, we've just been wanting to see these highs over here get taken, and that's exactly what's happened, right? And this happened with a pretty aggressive move, right? So when we look at the daily now, that push to the upside now has become an institutional candle, right? So we do have this daily candle here becoming a huge institutional candle to the upside, right? Not necessarily like a bad thing, but not great for our trade, especially when we consider the fact that, the lows right here are more so wicks, right? So yeah, I mean, like it could be that we are going to get another impulse to the downside here. So I used to be spamming buys last week, right? I was literally just trying to spam buys at like every low because I really had conviction that we were going to reach there. Now that we've reached there, I don't have that same level of conviction, right? I was kind of thinking maybe we could see a type 1 setup happening where we are right now. We do have an institutional candle in the previous zone, but now that price came up and, kind of has like just this 1 4-hour up candle. I mean, it doesn't look as clean, right? But maybe lower. I mean, one thing we do see actually is that push to the upside made equal highs right here. All right, we left those highs intact and made them equal, right? So maybe that could be a liquidity target later on, right? We also do have liquidity here as well when we push down there, right? I was really expecting price to get above here. I wanted to short in this area, right? But unfortunately, no such luck there, right? So yeah, I mean, maybe we sweep one more time, right? I would pay attention. Like if you were still to look for the buys, I mean, I would pay attention to this zone here, right? Probably sweeping that low there. We'll see, right? But if we're looking for buys, then there. If we're looking for sells, then honestly, I would probably only look for it again, like all the way up here. That's kind of my mindset with this there, right? So I don't mind looking for buys lower, right? I do think that the daily candle is a little bit scary, but honestly, guys, like that happens a lot. Like this can be like our signs of strength. We come down, we create our LPS, and then we continue. So it still happens a lot, right? So I'm not necessarily completely reversing the idea of seeing this via reaccumulation here that can be longer term for BTC. But if not, then we're probably going for 60K, right? Like if we don't hold this current order flow that we have been using for the last like again while, I do think that 60K is a likely next target and probably even deeper, getting down to like 57, and stuff like that. Basically, just getting into the extreme areas of this manipulation down. All right. So right down there, we shall see. Shall see. We shall see. That's pretty much the idea there for BTC though. Let's look at ETH. Yeah, ETH again, like just not great, right? Like, that daily candle there, right? Getting above the liquidity could definitely be a sign that we're just gonna just go ahead and dump it to the downside one more time, right? I would probably like this zone, but we'll see. We'll see. Again, we're in the middle right now, so it's like we just want to get into an extreme area one way or the other, right? For me with ETH, I mean, if we were to look for that same zone on BTC, then this would be ETH same relative zone. If we see this low get broken on ETH, then yeah, I think that we probably will head towards that 1700 level. Maybe BTC goes towards 60, right? But again, like if we sweep through here, maybe even like today, to be honest, if we sweep through here and we end up buying from this level, I mean, it still could potentially give us a bigger impulse higher on BTC and ETH, right? I just know so many people are bearish right now on crypto, and that's why, again, like not even just that's the only reason why, but the price actions also showed us potential for buys. But that's where I really want to go ahead and damn, I had to sneeze and it went away. That's where I really, go ahead and look to do the opposite of what everyone's talking about, right? So, I'll see what happens down here, see if that ends up being a setup or not. But again, only time will tell with this. All right, guys, whoops, trying to move this. Okay, great. So yeah, that's pretty much the main pairs. All right. I don't know if you guys had anything else you guys want me to look at. One thing I will give is an honorable mention to my boy Oil, right? Holy moly. We got Oil absolutely ripping it to the upside. We have been talking about buys on this for a while. Just didn't get to position, man. Just didn't get to position. But yeah, that last, candle has been absolutely insane, right? Like, I mean, like, what is that percentage wise? 30% literally in 1 week, right? Crazy stuff. Steve had been fiending for those oil shorts as well. And now, and now look at it booming like that, right? So yeah, that's really the idea there, right? But like, yeah, just absolutely insane. Yeah, that's why gas is starting to get more expensive for sure. Bro, even Diddy wouldn't buy oil that expensive. That's crazy. That is a crazy statement, bro. But I don't think you're wrong either. So we'll see what happens. Maybe we do reject. I don't know, but I think I've been pretty bullish on this bad boy. So I think that seeing it continue can still make sense. All right. But yeah, that's the idea there with oil, right? I mean, just absolutely boomed it. Now I forgot here in the chat, you said you wanted me to look at these, right? So USD CAD. So you put USD CAD buys may come down to 1.34786 January low. Big fair value gap just below 1.35326 to 1.35520, right? So let's see. So then your buys may come down to 1.3478. Buys at 1.3478. So you're talking just below this low here then, unless we have different number feeds, right? But you're talking just below this low. You're probably looking over here. Three, four, wait, 1.34786. And there's a big fair value gap just below 1.35326. 35326. Wait, 5326. Oh, so are you talking about the current? Maybe you just mistyped on your first one. 35326. Okay, so you're talking about the fair value gap down here. Yeah, I do remember this happening as well. I did want to see price get there too. Um, yeah, truthfully, I mean, like, look, like it could happen, right? We are just absolutely dumping right now, though. And like I would say again, it's like it could be, right? Like we did have 2 points of manipulation. You're looking for the third one. I think that's totally fair, right? And I won't discourage it either. I do think that it does make sense. I think you're playing in an extreme area, so that does look good. Just make sure you wait for the right confirmation in this area, right? That's really all it is. But yeah, probably I would wait until you get below 1.355, and then below there, look to go ahead and see, all right, can we get longs from this area? Maybe I can see what you're saying, right? There's definitely order flow and stuff. It's just whenever I want to go ahead and look for a buy, right? Like if I want to buy here, right? I'm going to go ahead and look when price gets in there. I'm going to look like, okay, well, where did price come from, right? What happened with where price came from? And again, just like that sweep, right? At least it didn't happen with a nice candle. It happened with a wick, but all we've been seeing there has just been sweep after sweep after sweep, right? So maybe, right? Again, if we do see the buy scenario on dollar, then USD CAD could be something to use for that. But right now it is looking a little bit scary, I will say. So I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens down here if we get the right price action. I won't disagree with you on that one. But I will say just be cautious because of the high that we came from. All right. The other thing you have here is CAD JPY sells, right? Close to all-time highs, July 7th. Yeah. So I mean, look, again, it's like, where did we come from, right? Accumulation down here, we came up, we respected that accumulation, and now we're booming, right? So we do have a really nice daily up candle there. If we do see the market go ahead and dump through that daily candle, I mean, that can become an institutional candle, and then maybe we can look to follow up. But right now, I'm not interested in shorts in this pair. Personally, I think that we just reaccumulated, right? We tapped the high, we reaccumulated, and now we boom it back up. So unless we get signs of distribution here, then maybe. But like, guys, just because something is coming to all-time highs does not necessarily mean that's where we're gonna sell, right? We want to be very careful because again, like smart money concepts, we tend to be very focused on reversals, right? That we kind of see them just because we're getting towards like, highs and stuff, right? So, like there's going to be like if something is bullish, there's going to be a lot of all-time highs that are going to be created, but there's only going to be one all-time high we're actually going to reject from before we actually dump, on that, right? Or before we go into the next cycle of that pair or of whatever you're talking about, right? So it's like just because there's an all-time high doesn't really mean anything, right? If there is, obviously it is a good zone where manipulation did happen, right? Now we have to see like this is a daily, weekly time frame setup. So now we have to see, all right, can we get signs of manipulation now happening on the smaller time frame, right? Can we be patient enough to just let things play out and then go ahead and like take the trade, from there, right? But that's really the idea there, guys. So that's kind of what I would say there for those two. We'll see how things end up playing out. They're definitely in extreme areas. They definitely have seen big moves going towards the entry areas that you're looking for. But yeah, just be careful and just wait for the right price action to confirm your theory. All right, guys. So yeah, that's pretty much that for me, guys. All right, just before 3 p.m., so perfect timing. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's session, and hopefully we go ahead and have a banger week going ahead and going in. This week, I will be dropping a bunch more of execution files on YouTube. All right, we just dropped a new one which was, a short-term BTC buy that we caught, right? So definitely go ahead and make sure you're tuned in to the channel, all right? And we're going to go ahead and drop a couple more trades that we took in the last 2 weeks that I haven't edited yet. So super excited to drop those guys. But yeah, that's that, guys. Much love, much appreciation. See you guys on the next one. Peace out.